Congrats again, everybody. It is now my pleasure to introduce our main speaker, Ty H. from Azusa.
That was quick. Good evening. My name is Ty Helmer, and I'm an alcoholic. Ty! And excuse me while I take one sec. First off, I want to thank Scott for inviting me out tonight, and Scott and Stephanie for a beautiful dinner. My sweetheart Diana, for riding up with me, and my good friend Darren, who drove down from Santa Barbara. I get to do stuff like this, and it absolutely blows my mind because when I walk into these rooms, I'm at home. No matter where I go. I live about a little over an hour south of here. Excuse me, I'm from Azusa, which is near the world-famous 502 Club in Covina, the sobriety capital of the world. Got to throw it out there. Anyways, man, this is it's a trip. I'm so grateful for my life. I get to stand up here and look out at people who are just like me. And again, man, I travel all over the country, not doing this because I'm not that cool, but I travel all over the country. I've got a son, a daughter-in-law, and 3 grandsons in Illinois. I've got a son in Texas. I've got a son who just moved back to Vegas. And like everywhere I go to meetings because that's what we do, right? Sobriety is the most important thing in my life. It's the most important aspect about me. My alcoholism can take me out at any point in time. Welcome to the newcomers who identified and those of you who didn't, if you're in here. Congratulations to the chip takers. There's a couple of you, and the birthday people. Happy birthday. Each milestone, no matter how small or big, it's a milestone. It's something to be extremely proud of because I know for me, over the last several years that I've been sober, my sobriety date's May 17th of 2017, I've been through some stuff. And if I wasn't in the middle of this thing, I may not be here. I can tell you this, this is not my first sobriety date. My first sobriety date was June 14th of 1992. And I was 22 years old. And I came in here and I did this deal. I stayed for 10 years. Like people go, 10 years and you drank again? Why? Because if I read the book, I see myself in the book repeatedly, over and over and over again. I identify with so much in there. Resentment is the number one offender. That's what took me out, a resentment, after 10 years of sobriety. But anyway, so did I say my sobriety date's May 17th of 2017? So I got about 8.5 years. My sponsor is Carl Morris. I have a home group, which is the Sunday night speaker meeting at the world-famous Covina 502 Club. I've been the speaker recorder in that meeting for 8 years. I'm a firm believer that commitments help keep me here when I absolutely don't want to be here. So I have that recording commitment on that Sunday. Once a month, I'm down in Huntington Beach at Jack G's interview with the drunk meeting, and I have a commitment. Well, actually, I don't have a commitment there anymore, huh? They figured out a way to work around me. Freaking AA people, I tell you what. But I also host a Monday 5 p.m. Zoom speaker meeting that I've been doing since COVID started. I'm the speaker coordinator for that as well. I'm on the Southern California Convention Committee. I'm on the Inland Empire Convention Committee. A group of guys and I are starting a men's retreat out in Joshua Tree this next year. But it's like, I say all these things, and it's like, if you're new or like if you've been around a while and you're not involved in this, if this is not your way of life, some people go, dude, like, you do all that for why? And I do it all because this is the life that you guys have given me. I could never repay the debt to you that I've been given. In my 10 years of sobriety previously, I kind of want to blow through that and get to present time. But in my 10 years of sobriety previously, right? So I had gotten sober at 22 after a whole lot of train wreck stuff, and like I'm a consequence kid, right? I was born with a problem. I don't know what it was, but it was there. I had my first drink at 5 by my own choice. My parents had these card parties, and I decided to, I equated the stuff on the counter with them laughing and having a good time, so I grabbed a bottle of slow gin for all you old people, and I ran into the bathroom and took a few, but nothing happened, right? It was just, I was like, oh, okay, I wanted to know, and I don't remember anything. My parents had a little restaurant when I was, I think they bought it when I was like seven years old or so. somewhere around, and I'm guesstimating because it was a lot of years ago, but I'm only 38, so let's go. But somewhere around 8 years old, I was the owner's smart aleck kid, and the guys that worked there thought it would be funny to give me Budweiser, and I had my first pass-out puking drunk at 8 years old. And you know what's funny is, like, again, I didn't equate that feeling with, oh, this is cool. But what I did equate it with was, now I'm cool. I'm part of these guys, right? And I'm one of those chronic, I'm one of those chronic, we went to dinner, so if I do weird things up here, it's his fault. I'm one of those chronic egomaniacs with an inferiority complex, right? So I never think I'm good enough, but when I get around people that seem to like me, I'm like, oh, I fit right in. And after that first drunk, I returned back to the restaurant, and I was cool. And then shortly thereafter, it was on and cracking, right? 9 years old, 10 years old, I'm smoking. A couple years later, I'm putting other stuff up my nose, and all of these things happening. Then I started to go, I really like the way this stuff makes me feel. And then the problems started happening, right? Simple things that I had no control over. My parents separated when I was 12. I remember standing in the corner of our living room as I walked in, and my mom and dad were sitting on the couch in the love seat apart from each other. And they said, hey, we need to talk to you. And I walked over, and I see this like it was yesterday. I walk over, and they said, we're separating. And my mom was gone in the evening, so it was like I had my mom all day, and then I had my dad at night. So I had this really cool quality time as a young kid with a very loving family. There's no alcoholism in our family. My grandmother used to put bourbon in her coffee, but my dad was adopted, so that doesn't, it's like one removed. But, you know, and all these things started happening, and it was alcohol became the solution that I didn't even know was becoming the solution. It fixed all of that anxiety and fear and separation and stuff that was going on between going from my mom and dad's house that was now my dad's house to my mom's apartment, who, you know, it was like she's the caregiver, she's mom. And I have this like superpower of being an A-type personality that can't talk to people. But you give me a couple of drinks and I'm all over everybody, except for women. I got my own. Anyways, to blow through this part, right? So I'm a consequence person. At 14, my buddies and I are stealing wheels off don't judge, stealing wheels off this car. And one guy's sitting across the street in his dad's dually, and the lights come on, so we split. I run across the street. I go to jump in the back of the truck, and I'm plastered, of course, because I don't do anything sober. And I hit the side of the dually, and he runs me over. He stops dual wheels on my leg. And when he went to back off, I could have sworn my foot was going to blow off. Oh, maybe a year later, I'm at my other buddy's house. We're drinking and having a big party or whatever, and I climb up on the second story of his roof and dive off into the shallow end of the pool and dust my head, almost broke my neck. But like that's me, right? I have no concept of what's right and wrong. I have no concept of what's safety and not, and I just go. I go, and I have that inferiority complex, you know, that's festering underneath. So people go, well, I dare you to do this. Well, that's going to make me a part of, so I'm going to go do it because you'll think I'm cool. But I tell you what, I'm 56 and I feel all that stuff now. But so I'm 17, get my first car, got my driver's license, and it took me all of 8 months to get in a high-speed pursuit and ultimately be introduced to you guys. I won 6 A&A classes at court and a 30-day license suspension. It's 1986, so if you new people are wondering why your DUIs are so bad, it's because there's a lot of us out there. So I get these A&A classes, and I show up in the local city, you know, and I walk in, and it's a bunch of old people smoking. The room's full of smoke, and there's kind of, you know, it's like these old codgy, but there's a couple of young people, and I'm like, all right. So I go over and talk to them, and I'm like, where are we going to drink after this? And we did, you know. I mean, I wanted no part of you guys. I was a kid. I was just doing what I did. I was having fun, trying to have fun. And so I'd leave the AA classes and go drink. But the one thing that happens, God works for me when I don't even know he's working for me. That seed was planted. And it was stuck in the back of my mind. So I can get this out. Hey, water. Let me drink the water first. My Lord. I'll be done in a minute. Several years later, now I'm 22. I've been in this relationship with this girl for a couple of years, and we get home on a Thursday night, and she tells me, I'm going to go to my uncle's in Huntington Beach for the weekend. And I'm like, cool, now I don't have to listen to her when I drink. And so she leaves, and she comes home Sunday and walks in and says, we need to talk. And I'm like, okay. She says, I didn't go to my uncle's. I went up North River rafting with a guy, and he's in AA, and you're an alcoholic. And like literally I wanted to go, ooh, no kidding. Because I kind of knew. I mean, like, you know, I didn't know. I didn't know, but I knew, if that makes sense. It does. I know you all know. But I was like, okay, whatever. So cordless phones back then, they were super cool. I took the phone in the bathroom and I cut the wire to the battery and I put it, because that's how I do stupid stuff, right? I didn't want her to be able to talk to anybody, especially the guy she went river rafting with. And ironically, 5 years later, I'm river rafting. But so I do what any good alcoholic guy does, and I'm back at my mom's house on the couch. And I'm 22 years old. I have an overview of my life. I'm miserable. I'm not happy. I feel separated from all my friends because every time I drink, I black out. So they're either taking care of me, getting me out of jail, or having some other issue with me. So I have this loneliness. I don't have a girlfriend anymore. I have the shame and guilt of being on my mom's couch. And I didn't want to be like that. And I can't truly say that at 22 years old I had a moment of clarity, but I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I picked up the phone, called the central office, and found a meeting, and I walked into the Men's Sick, Lame, and Lazy meeting on June 14th of 1992. And I did this deal. Shortly after that, I met a girl in there. Not too shortly. I had a kid with another girl because I do weird stuff like that. But I met this girl in Alcoholics Anonymous after 2 or 3 years, and she had a son prior. I had a son prior. We had the big AA wedding. It was magical. I mean, when I say it was magical, it was magical. We had the big AA wedding, 250 people at a nightclub. I don't know what I was thinking. Whatever. This huge AA wedding. So, and then we ended up having 2 kids. And from the outside, my life looked amazing, right? I'm sober. I grew up just a tiny bit. So I suit up, show up, and grow up, and all the stuff starts happening. I can't say it was the 9-step promises because I wasn't super really into the steps, even though I did them. But from the outside, my life looked amazing. I had the girl. I had beautiful kids. I had this fantastic job. I was sober, and everything was golden. And I was with this approximate 80 to 90, 70, 80, 90 person, young person's group. And we used to go do all kinds of stuff. River rafting, bungee jumping, all this stuff. We did all kinds of cool stuff, camping, and it was a great time. But I'm now married with kids. So I was not being called to go do this stuff, forgetting that I was married with kids. And I picked up this resentment. And then my company offered me a position up north, up in Bay Area. And I took the position. So by the time I'm 7 years sober, I have all this big, beautiful life. Now I have a big, beautiful home. I've got this big corporate job running this division of this company. And I've got nothing, no AA. I have the resentment. I quit calling my sponsor, let go of my sponsees, pulled a geographic 400 miles away. I lived in Tracy, California, and at the time there was one meeting in that town, and it was a Hispanic meeting, and mi Espanol was no habla bueno or whatever back then. And it's crazy because I was up there for 3 years before I ended up ultimately drinking. My office was in San Leandro, right on the bay. And it not once, right? The cunning, baffling, and powerful part of alcoholism for me sometimes doesn't creep in and do things that are real blatant. But what it did for me at that point in time was it literally never crossed my mind to look for a meeting in San Leandro. I kept going, there's no meetings around my house. I don't need to go to AA. And there was probably 200 meetings within 15 minutes of my office. But what ultimately happened up there was I ended up drinking. Some things happened in my marriage. I had to take off and have back surgery in 2002. Some things happened in my marriage that weren't copacetic to making it last. And I picked up a drink shortly after my 10th birthday in about October of 2002. And had back surgery December 27th. So between October of 2002 and February of 2003, I took off from my job to have back surgery, had issues in my marriage that I could not handle because I had no spiritual defense. I did not have a sufficient substitute for alcohol, and that became the only resolve. I found myself one Friday night while my wife was with her at work, boyfriend work, and standing in front of the liquor cabinet, and Smirnoff Ice was a really big thing back then, so I'm a whiskey drinker, if you can't tell. I'm not exactly the slack and loafer kind of guy. But so I found myself in front of the liquor cabinet in the liquor store, and I bought a six-pack of Smirnoff Ice. And I went home and I drank that. And I immediately turned right back around and went back to the liquor store and bought a bottle of Jack Daniels. And after over 10 years of sobriety, my first night drinking was blackout puking drinking. Because alcoholism is progressive. It doesn't stop and wait for me while I'm sober. It doesn't give me this reprieve where it's just kicking in the closet waiting, oh, well, maybe if he might be able to handle it. I can't. It's progressive. It stays with me. It progresses along with me whether I'm sober or drunk and manifests in ways that I don't see. So, what did you tell me not to say? She gets mad at me when I say, long story short. But that really does speed up the talk, right? You get to jump forward from 2002 to 2001. No. So what ended up happening was, now I'm 30, whatever, 5. It's 2003, and I can't see my kids. So between June of 2002 and February of 2003, I've lost my job because I couldn't perform at work after having back surgery. I lost my wife. I'm an AA, or so I journal and write all the vile stuff in a journal that my wife found and took to the police. So they took my kids from me. And by February of 2003, I'm back on my mom's couch, where all good AA men go. And I'm drunk. I'm drunk, bad drunk. I did not draw a sober breath for the next year. And that loneliness was back in a severity that I couldn't comprehend because I had never hit that low before. When I was 22 and got sober, I just had a little life. I'd worked for my dad at his health club, and he fired me, so I got to experience the shame and guilt of that, right? Because I'm drinking behind the counter at night, not being able to do my job and sell. But I had no life. At 22, I'm just a kid. But now here I am, 35, and I had a career, and I had a family. I've got 4 boys, and I had a wife. And now I have nothing. I remember driving once the kind of court stuff started to mellow out. I still couldn't see my kids, but I needed to be with them because all I knew was to be a dad and a husband. So I would drive from my house in Glendora all the way up to Tracy every Friday afternoon so I could watch my kids play at the end of the street because I couldn't go within 100 yards from them. And I'd sit at the end of the street and watch my boys. And my miserable wife, who I hated so much at that time, I'd like sit out there for hours. Like literally, I would pull up at 9 o'clock in the morning and my boys would be outside from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. and their mom would never walk out the door and they'd never go inside the house. I have no resentment over that. I've worked through it. Just reporting. That was good. No, but so what ended up happening was I was able to kind of pull myself together a little bit. I worked through all the stuff because that's what happens, right? Life happens, and whether we want it to or not, everything works out one way or another. We put one foot in front of the other. And some of the stuff that I've learned now has completely changed the dynamic of my life. So I'm out for 15 years, and I'm a good dude, so I met another girl and had another kid because that's how I roll. So I have 5 boys. It's about 2007-ish, somewhere around there, 2008, and I can maintain, I don't want to say periods of sobriety, but I can maintain control enough to do some things, right? I started a little business. I'm making okay money. My weekends are pretty much the blackout periods, and the girl that I'm with, she drinks like I do, so there's no real major problems for a long time, it's 5, 6 years. But when they happen, I tell you what, man, us alcoholics are like dynamite in a box, aren't we? It went off, and within about a 6-month period, we're at the LA County Fair. It's me, her mom, her stepdad, and one of her friends. And by the end of the night, we're all plastered, and I'm going to fist fight her stepdad. And she's taking my now 18-month-old son and leaving, and I'm like 3 times everybody's size, so I went, try me. And I picked my son up, got in my truck, and drove home. And by the end of that night, I'm in my home, and they show up at my house, and her stepdad comes in my house and tells me he's going to take TJ. And I said, no, you're not. You need to get out of my house. And by the end of that whole thing, we had helicopters and police cars and ambulances at my house. Just so you know. And so a few years later, a couple years later, I end up, I kind of went through this period where I didn't want to date. And my buddy Jeff was like, dude, all you do is drink, pass out, and work, drink. I'm like, that's a perfect life. What are you talking about? It's like all I ever wanted to do. So he encouraged me to, like, meet somebody. So I got on this dating site, which is ridiculous. And I met this girl in Maui. And so we're doing this thing called Skype, right? And I'm thinking, this is awesome because I get to appease Jeff. I'm talking to somebody, but I don't actually have to date her because she's way the hell over there. And it's all cool. Until I fell in love with her over Skype, right? This is a predecessor to Zoom for all of you who aren't computer savvy. But like I fell in love with this girl over a 2D thing, right? I'm looking pictures of her and we're talking, like, this girl's friggin' amazing. So I fly to Maui and I get off the plane and I'll never forget this. Like I still see it in my head. I walk down the ramp and when I saw her in person, right? There was this question, whoever laughed, you know where I'm going with this. And I'm walking down the ramp and I'm thinking, all right, is she going to be a troll or is she going to be it? And she was it. Like I had met that person, I believe there's multiple people for us, but I had met that person and I walked up and like didn't even say anything. Walked up, never seen this girl in person, kissed her, and we were like inseparable for the next 10 days. And shh, telling a story here. And 2.5 months later, I moved her and her 8-year-old son in. But the crazy thing about it, right? I'm in the throes of my alcoholism. I'm under the gun. And I fly her and her 8-year-old son over and move them in. And a couple weeks later, we're sitting at this Starbucks. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm hungover. And I remember looking across the table at this poor girl and thinking, she's got no idea what she's gotten herself into. I do. I know exactly. But it was like this, right? The mask that we talk about. It was thick and it was on good. But that too fell off. And 3 years into that relationship, we're engaged. And I had done all the stuff, right? All the stuff's reserved. I got the food ready and the venue paid for and the save the dates are out. And about 8 weeks before the wedding, we're supposed to get married in April of 2016. About 8 weeks before the wedding, I'm like, babe, you got to send the actual invitations out. Nobody's coming yet. And she looks at me and says, I can't marry you. And I knew why. I wasn't a good dude. My alcoholism had turned me into a person that I'm not. I was not good to her son, as at that time I was not good to my own 5 boys. I didn't treat her well. I wasn't out cheating and doing that stuff, but I was a drunk. I was a drunk. And I did my best to help her get to where I was at, but she just freaking refused. So in June of 2016, once again, the person I'm with made some decisions that was not kosher to a long-term relationship, shall we say. And I put her and her now 11-year-old son out on the street. And, I quickly realized the way of my wrongs. A couple weeks later, I'm begging her, come back, come back. And she had rented a 1-bedroom, 1 single-car garage, like one side of a single-car garage that had carpet on the floor, completely makeshift. She had a mattress on the floor for her and her 11-year-old son, a single mattress. All her stuff was in boxes and bags. And I remember telling her, just come back. Like, you guys can have the other 2 bedrooms. You can stay in there. You don't even have to be in my bedroom. Nope. She didn't want anything to do with me. But I'm a salesman. That's what I do by trade. So I weaseled my way back in over the next, month or so. Just talking, and asked her to come, let's go out, whatever. And so we kind of did this weird dating thing for the next few months. Come October of 2016, one of my best friends, 35 years, his name's Dennis. He was a detective, ironically, from Maui. But he was here for a class reunion. And we go out on Saturday night, and, I'm like with a cop. I'm with all these high school people, so it's all us old folks. Well, they're old. I wasn't old. He's older than me. And I was cool, though. I didn't get plastered drunk. I drank all evening. I was drunk, but I was not stupid. I wasn't out of control. And we stopped on the way home and got a bottle of Jack and went home, had one more drink, went to bed. Sometime the next morning, her and I end up in a texting conversation. And ultimately what happened was she just told me to leave her alone. Like, we text for like 45 minutes or something, and it's like 6:30 in the morning, and I'm drinking to kind of calm my shakes and settle my stomach. And as time went on, she ended up telling me that she's like, she said she was going to the beach. And I'm thinking, like, my first thought was like, cool, what beach? I'll show up. But then she told me she was going with a guy. They're just friends. And it hit me. It hit me in that moment like a ton of bricks. It wasn't the guy. But that moment, it spurred the thoughts of everything in my life was just a freaking train wreck. I couldn't maintain personal relationships. I was miserable and depressed. All of the stuff. And it hit me. It hit me like Mike Tyson giving me a right cross, even though he's a sissy. But all of it, and I was done. I was done. I emotionally checked out, and I became suicidal and homicidal in that moment. And I went and got my 45, and I sent her a picture of it, and I said, come mend this. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. Everything I touch is a failure. My sobriety, my career, my kids aren't, they're kind of estranged at that point. Everything I do, I ruin, and I don't want to live like this. Then I sent her a picture of my AR. Then I sent her a picture of some pills. And somewhere over that discussion, she said, just put your guns away. You're not going to do anything with them anyways. So I fired off a round into my ceiling, which brought my detective buddy who was downstairs up at a rapid pace. I'm not a bad guy, and I'm not a criminal. But I turned my 45 on one of my best friends in the world. And, of course, he says, I'm out. He leaves. And so I sit down on my floor, and I knew that if the cops came up my stairs, I was going to take somebody with me when they tried to take me. And I sat there, and I'm going to say my alcoholism, because that's truly what it was. My alcoholism rationalized and justified why I did not need to be here. My mom had her brother and my aunt. My dad had my stepmom and my 2 half-sisters. All of my boys had their moms. And I put my gun in my mouth, and I remembered that I had all this dental work done, and I didn't want to screw my teeth up. That's the chicken shit way of saying that I couldn't pull the trigger. But I damn sure was going to kill somebody if they came up my stairs. And at some point, this is all happening in the morning, early afternoon, I hear this explosion, and I had this metal security screen on my door, and what had happened was SWAT got a little antsy and blew the screen off the door. But I heard that, and of course I get up, and I take my 45, and I round the corner to my stairs, and I'm looking down, and there's this freaking robot coming up my stairs. So I make sure the robot doesn't have a weapon on it, and I walk down my stairs, and I pick the robot up, and like I said, they blew the screen door, so the wood door is still kind of shut. I open the wood door, and I chuck the robot out, and I shut the wood door, and turn to go back up my stairs. And so I live in a 4-plex of condominiums, so there's 4 in a row, and there are banks of them down the street. And outside of my bedroom, there's a deck about 15 by 30. And so as I come up the stairs, I crest the stoop, and I see SWAT on the balcony across from mine. So I army crawl over, and I get my AR, and army crawl out on my deck, and stood up. Wasn't smart. But I ended up taking 2 rounds to the chest from a SWAT member from about 15 feet. The guy was on my left, and when they went in, they hit my chest and exploded my chest, and grabbed my chest, put my fingers inside my left lung, which is not there anymore, well, most of it, and I collapsed. But I remember yelling at the cop, "I can't believe you effing shot me. Big surprise." And so I hit the ground, SWAT comes in behind me. One guy's got his hand on my back, and he's yelling at me, and another one rolls up, and he sits down next to me, he squats down next to me. And this is like I talk about a lot about when we do like these little short things, like God is with us. Our book isn't designed to stop us from drinking. Our book is designed to introduce us to a power greater than ourselves. And if you read through it with that state of mind, that thought process, there's a good chance that you'll find what you're looking for. And I believe in this moment, I experienced my first moment of grace that I recognized, because I looked at the guy that squatted down next to me and I said, "So this is how it all ends. I'm never going to see my kids again." Sorry, sometimes it gets me, sometimes it doesn't. Last night it didn't. You'd think I was freaking sitting next to the guy and watching this whole thing. And I remember the moments. I was pretty loaded, but not after I got shot. I think I sobered up. But I just thought the whole thing was excessive. They could have tased me. So I woke up, that was on Sunday, October 23rd of 2016, and I woke up on Wednesday at USC intubated, and I'm claustrophobic. And the reason I remember when I woke up is because I woke up in an absolute panic because I couldn't breathe because they had a freaking tube down my throat. And my 4 older boys are sitting in the room with me, 2 on either side of me. And I started to panic and freak out. And I remember the nurse who I wanted to punch in the mouth said, "Oh, honey, you're intubated. Just breathe like you're breathing through a straw." Like, oh, who breathes through a freaking straw? So they injected me with something to calm me down and knock me out, and they almost actually killed me. They almost stopped my heart because my blood pressure was so bad. Anyways, to kind of get through this part, let's see it. They did about 22 hours of surgery on me. The surgeon on Tuesday evening met my mom and my uncle in the hallway after finishing the last round of surgery. And he tells my mom, he says, "I'm not quite sure why he's alive. We've done everything we can for him." When the bullets went in, they hit my heart, my lungs, my liver, my kidney. They fragmented. There were 6 rounds, and they fragmented. The surgeon was actually a naval surgeon, and he'd never seen anything this bad in the civilian world before. Whatever. So I spent 17 days in the hospital, only because I was going to leave whether they let me or not, because my ego, even damaged, tells me I'm just different. It's that separatism that I suffer from that I cannot change. It's just chronically in me. And I had lost 44 pounds in 17 days, and they told me that I had to do 2 things before I got out of the hospital. But during that 17-day period, they had sent the hospital chaplain in twice to read me my last rites. At about day 10, I had an infection around my heart that they couldn't kill. So they went in and did a culture of the bacteria and actually made an antibiotic to kill the bacteria. And at day 17, I did the 2 things that they said I had to do, and at the end of the day, they wheeled me out of the hospital, and I ended up back on my mom's couch, if you weren't going to guess that. I had atrophy so bad in my legs I couldn't hardly walk, and I had to rehab myself because I wasn't intelligent enough to let the doctors do it. So I'd walk from the couch to the bathroom, from the couch to the front door, from the couch out the front door down the driveway, and ultimately I'd end up down the street and by the school that was behind us. And I was given medication for 30 days till my next checkup, and on about day 10-ish, I had run out of medication. And I went to go for my walk and get to the end of the street, and I had a choice to make. Did I go to the school, or did I hang a left and go to the bar? I can't remember the pain of a week or a month ago. Not even being shot. Not even being cut from side to side, losing the left. I don't have a nipple, I'm uninipple, and she likes it, so it's all that matters. But I'm cut all the way across, all the way down the center. I've got sucking wounds in my chest. I have to pack 30 feet of gauze in my chest twice a day to help that heal from the inside out. I've got 3 other wounds that are all the way into my abdomen, to my intestines that I have to pack. But I don't know that matters. Alcohol is calling my name. I have no more medication, and that restless, irritable, and discontentedness is eating me freaking alive. I have all this guilt and shame I've just destroyed. Everything that I had left, I've just destroyed. Relationship with my mom, my dad, everybody thinks I'm a complete lunatic. My youngest son's mom is trying to take my youngest son away from me. I mean, warranted, I'm a little off right now. So let me get sober. I got a few minutes left here. So, to fast forward, I get sentenced, instead of 8 years in prison, I get sentenced to a year in sober living. And how that transpired was my oldest son is one of us. He's got about 7 months longer sober than I do, and he was in this particular sober living. And as I'm going through the court process, he's telling me, Pop, tell him you want to go to sober living. Tell him. And I'm thinking, they're not letting me go to sober living. This is not, I got busted with a couple grams of crack. My attorney happened to be an ex-DA, and he's all the way through. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. And my son, just relentless over about a 6-month period. The last, God dang it, why is this getting me tonight? The last hearing, he tells me, Pop, tell him you want to go to this particular sober living that he's in. Other than that, I'd just been saying sober living. And so we go to court, tell my attorney, and he says, I'll ask the DA. Get into court, we're standing up there, my attorney says, hey, let's send him to this sober living. And he goes, no. And the judge goes, where? And the judge overruled the DA and sentenced me to a year in sober living. Is it odd or is it God? That's from my friend Lulu. My buddy Darren, in part of his story, he says, we've entered the realm of the Spirit, and that's about as accurate as I can get. Things happen in my life today that I can't understand. I have a good group of men that I hang with. I've put myself in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we have a morning routine that we all kind of do, and that entails getting up right. Step 11 says we sought through prayer and meditation, not just prayer. Prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. I get up each morning and I ask God to get in my head before I do, because I'm that kind of guy. And then I get a cup of coffee and I either sit on my couch with a fire, or I go out on my front porch with a fire, and I like fire, whatever. And I do my prayer and meditation. I do my prayer. And I do these things in a specific order, right? I'm a real big believer in the book. The book was written in I talked about this last night. Book's written in 1939 by a proctologist, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. And a weirdo, crooked stockbroker, and it has changed the face of the world. Alcoholics Anonymous has helped more people recover than any other facilitation of sobriety on the planet. The beginning of chapter 5 says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Simple, not always easy. But I believe in my heart and soul that if you put yourself in the center of this program and you get good people around you, right? You'll hear at different meetings, stick with the winners. I don't necessarily like that, but in one aspect it's true, because if you spend enough time in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, you'll see who's doing the deal and who's not. And if you want to stay sober, if you are granted that gift of desperation, find those people. There's a lot of meetings, man. My beautiful girlfriend Diane and I, we go to meetings all over. We're in Pacific Palisades with Jimmy D, and I'm sorry if you know him. We're in Malibu. We spent a year at the Pacific Group in Culver City. We're down in Laguna. We're down in San Diego. I spoke at the High Desert Convention this last year. We're all over the place. And it's like, if you think that you come to a couple of meetings and that's Alcoholics Anonymous, believe me, that is not Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the tip of the sword. I absolutely love this program. And again, I could not ever do enough to repay what has been given me. I go to bed at night and I put my head on my pillow and I go to sleep. I have crazy problems going on in my life. Just because you're sober doesn't mean the problems are going to go away. It's not a magic cure. The magic is in here. The magic is in our book. I'm going to try this again, and I'll get down from here. Last night I totally botched this, but it's super, super cool. So I'll tell you a little story. So there's this Buddha. One more time. Monk. Buddhist monk. That's what he is. See? I'm already screwing it up, but it's a super cool story. So there's this Buddhist monk, and he's got his class of people that he's trying to teach, right? And he's holding this cup of coffee, and he asks the students, he says, if you bump into me, what's going to happen? And they say, you'll spill your coffee. And he says, oh, I screwed it up again. No? I'm going to get this down. I love this story, and I try and tell it, and I mess it up. So you're going to spill your coffee. And he tells them, I'm going to get to the gist of this because I could ruin this whole freaking talk in about 18 seconds. So the gist of that story is you're going to spill what's in your cup, right? Whether it's coffee or whatever. So when somebody bumps into you, you're going to spill out anger, fear, frustration, hurt, if that's what's inside of you. But on the contrary, if you're carrying love, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness and you're bumped into, that's what you're going to spill out. And the idea behind that is if you're doing this program to the best of your ability and you're carrying love and compassion in your heart, when problems happen in your life, that's what's going to come out, not the anger, fear, and resentment. Thank you for letting me screw up.